How's everyone doing today? Excuse my throat. Morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today? So this time, at least, I said to everyone what time I'd be going live. So I'm going to be doing a live on this page, my YouTube channel. Then later on this afternoon, I'm also going to be going live on my business page on Facebook, also on my Instagram. And I think that's it for the live streams today. I think on my personal page as well, on my Facebook. So the whole purpose of these live streams is just to look at different topics. And as you know, every Wednesday I'll upload a recorded video about relationships. And then on Fridays, it's normally just a counselling related topic. So this is more of a, I suppose, it's just going to be talking about a few different videos that I've been watching on YouTube, and it's all connected with the work that I do as a counsellor, because some of the information is from psychotherapists, from psychologists, philosophers, and it's just around this idea of living an authentic life. And all of them, I listened to this, it was like a motivational talk, and then I just took some notes from it, and then I'm just going to add as well to it. There's loads of notes, but I'm going to try and keep it I'll try and keep these live streams to probably maybe, I'd say if I can do it for like 20 minutes or under, then that would be keep people's attention. Obviously, I'm going to be doing other types of live streams as well. Maybe I'll try and get people to collaborate with, and maybe do a few like interviews and podcasts and things like that, but we'll see how we get on. And anyone watching on the live stream, the replay, feel free to leave your comments. Let me know what you think. So this idea of living an authentic life. So in the video that I watched, it was taking quotes from Carl Jung, who's a psychotherapist, Abraham Maslow, who's also a philosopher and psychotherapist, Viktor Frankl, and there's a brilliant book which you can read, which is called Man's Search for Meaning. I'm sure I did a book review about that on this channel as well in 2024, or was it 2023? Carl Rogers, who's also a psychotherapist, Alfred Adler, and also a psychotherapist, and Alan Watts, he's more of like a philosopher. So some of the things that we're talking about, and I'm not going to go into like all detail because there's, like, as I've said, loads of information. You can just Google some of these people. And I'll put it in the description, or you can just go on YouTube, and there's so much information on there that, you know, you'd be there all day trying to figure it out. So thanks for joining, whoever joined. So he talks about this idea that a midlife crisis, when you reach midlife, it's not a crisis. People call it a midlife crisis, but it's actually an awakening. So what he talks about, it doesn't go into this detail, but this is my interpretation, is that because society has certain norms and certain things that they think people should do at a certain age, when they see someone who's like in their 50s or 60s living life in a particular way, so maybe this person's going off traveling, maybe this person goes and buys himself a fancy car or whatever it is, they'll say this person is going through a midlife crisis. And the reason society will say that is because this person is actually living more free now. This person is actually saying, well, you know, at this age or at this time in my life, I want to just do what I've always wanted to do. And society can't handle that, because it means there's no order then. You've got these people running around, dressing how they want, buying what they want, saying what they feel, and no one likes it. So people start using this word crisis, but there's no like indication that the person is going through a crisis at all. It's just the people around them are not used to that type of behaviour. So it talks about the fact that you become more awakened that as you get older, and as you know that you were, especially if you're coming towards the end of like life, you don't know when you're going to come to the end of your life, but say when you're in your 60s and 70s, you have an idea that, you know, time is precious and that sort of thing. So you might behave in ways that people around you are not used to. And all it says, all these philosophers are saying is really that's what you should be doing, because life is really, you've spent your whole life trying to be the kind of person who fits in. But this version of you isn't the only version that exists. So you keep parts of yourself hidden, so you pretend or you put on an act. And he says that most people in life put on an act or a mask because it gets you through life, because you'll be accepted then. If you be the good little child, you're taught from a young age to just be good, be quiet, stop talking, behave, sit there. When you take your child, or people take their child to someone's house, it's like, right, sit there and be good. And they say to them when they go to the park, play nicely, and they use all these words, and all that is keeping people in check. And so when you then realize that you don't want to be that type of person, you want to be free, you want to do whatever you want to do, then all of a sudden it says that you stop fighting yourself. And when you get to midlife stage, it forces you to review the life you constructed versus who you really are. So you start to say to yourself, do I really want to be this type of person that I've been acting like my whole life? So yeah, it's really powerful. There's more to it than that, but I'm just giving you like the mini version. So it says that you should stop chasing and start choosing. Stop chasing things just because you think that's what like people think you should have, or just because you even believe that chasing a fancy job, or chasing a relationship, or chasing a particular house, or whatever it is. It says stop chasing those things and instead start choose what it is that you actually want. And this is true of the amount of clients I work with who have got these shoulds and musts in their head from childhood. My parents says I must be a doctor. I've grown up with this idea that you should do this, or you should marry this type of person, or you should live in this type of home. If most people sat and reviewed and questioned the life they're living, a lot of people probably wouldn't be happy, but they'd say, well, what will make me happy? Because, having this massive house with loads of cars on the drive, maybe that is making me happy, but deep down, maybe that's not really what I want. Maybe I don't want this mortgage hanging over me so that I have to work a certain amount of hours every month. But for other people, they're willing to make that sacrifice. So there's no right or wrong with it. It's more of you need to choose what type of life you want. You need to choose what type of person you want to become, instead of sort of chasing something which might not really be what you want. It's saying, so it says the aim of life isn't to avoid everything that hurts you or that's painful. It's to confront those things and to move through the suffering so that you understand yourself and you give meaning to what happened. So Carl Jung is the master of this. So he talks about everyone is trying to avoid hurt and pain and suffering, but you can't live life without that stuff. So instead of you avoiding it, instead of using things like, he talks about people using drugs and alcohol to numb the suffering, people using sex, or sleeping with lots of different people to avoid the pain of a breakup. People, just watching playing video games all day, or distracting themselves in all sorts of ways. But he said all it is because they're not getting what they want out of life. And he says what you need to do is to really just put things into perspective. If something bad has happened, you can just take the meaning from it. Okay, well, why did this happen? What does it mean to me? How can I respond to it? And then move forward, because he says you're not going to be able to avoid suffering in life. There's always going to be things that are going to happen that you're not going to like. There's always going to be painful things. So it's not saying run towards it and just say, yeah, okay, I'm going to open myself up to suffering. Because I think that's where people get it wrong. They think that these psychologists and people are saying you should just run towards pain and you should just do things that make you suffer. It's saying that those things are going to happen anyway. So it's the meaning that you attach to it. Think about, okay, well, this happened, this breakup happened, it really hurt. Okay, what can I then do moving forward? Not saying that you're then never going to date anyone again, or you're never going to open up your heart, but just so it's just talking about not just confronting things head on. And this is something I talk to my clients about, because it says people who avoid everything, they experience temporary happiness, but they're the most unhappy. So what that's trying to say, and this is my interpretation, when the people that avoid everything in life, so they avoid interactions with people, because they say, well, why do I need to talk to that person for, or why do I need to be around other people? Temporarily they feel good because they say, oh, I'm fantastic because I'm I don't need people in my life. And same as people like, oh, I don't need money, I don't need anything. So in their mind, they're feeling happy because it's like, yeah, I'm going to be this island on my own where I don't interact with people, where I don't need money for anything, where I don't, you know, work, where I don't, whatever it is, all these stuff that they're sort of avoiding, and they're just saying, yeah, I'm in this like little square bubble where everything's fine. It's all temporary because they're telling themselves that, but it says really deep down they're unhappy because that's not how like people can live. You can't really live like that. You can live like that and give yourself justification or rationalization for, oh, this is making me happy, but it doesn't fit with like human nature. Human nature, you need to be, we're social beings. Human nature, we need money for things. You know, and people can keep doing these theories where they're telling people, oh, it's not even like having extra money for to buy, you know, maybe some of the things that you want, some of the extra things. It's just for the basics. So he's trying to say really, I mean, there's other parts, I'll get onto that when I talk about Abraham Maslow, because he talks about this hierarchy of needs. So he also talks about you need to have a sense of purpose. So this is Maslow now. When we're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Abraham Maslow created this. It's like a pyramid. You can Google Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Sorry about the noise. I've got this cleaner. I'm cleaning my windows. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is where he looks at what people need and how you go from like the bottom and you go up to this like triangle, and at the top is self-actualization. At the bottom is just your basic needs. So he starts off by saying people need shelter, food, warmth. Yeah, so shelter, food, warmth, all the basic stuff. So basic stuff. He says, so hi, awesome. So if you don't get those needs met at first, then there's no point trying to jump up the ladder to the other types of things that you might need, like being part of a community, sense of belonging, relationships, and that sort of thing. So you start off with, you know, the basic needs, and then you keep going up and up and up until you get to the point where you are self-actualized, so you become your greatest version. So he says that people who don't have a sense of purpose, they're never going to become the most. So it says it's not about just achieving things. It's not about getting lots of certificates and qualifications. It's not about having, you know, fancy cars and all the rest of it. He said, if you don't get up that ladder and where you have a sense of belonging, you have high self-esteem, you have good relationships with your family, with friends, with others, you have, you know, how you feel within yourself, then you're not going to become your greatest version because you haven't become what you're on earth to become. And he says you might not even get there by the end of your life. Might not ever become your greatest version. But he says that people need to have a purpose. That's your whole reason for being alive. That's what he believes. Anyway, Maslow, he said that if you don't find the purpose in life, that's when people become depressed. That's when people are sad because they're thinking, well, what's the point? If you just get up every day and you don't have a purpose, you don't have a meaning, you don't have a reason to be doing something, then you're just going to feel like, well, what's the point in me being here? So he says that is probably man's search, is to find your meaning, find your purpose, and then to live your purpose. So Carl Jung talks about this idea of facing parts of yourself you don't like. He calls it the shadow. This is just a separate, I can't even go into this completely because there's so much to it. But Carl Jung talks about, we call it in therapy, we call it parts work. So parts work means when you have a person who is coming to therapy and they're only focusing on one part of themselves that they like. So they'll talk about themselves in a really really highly good way, but then other parts of themselves they feel ashamed about. And there's lots of people which will use words like, that was out of character for me, and that's not really me, that's not who I am. So when you hear people using those types of sentences, it means that they are hiding or they're afraid to reveal parts of themselves. And what Carl Jung said is that that's when you become lost. When you say, oh, the way that I acted that night, or the way that I acted today, or the way that I feel, if it's not in alignment with who you think society thinks you should be, or who maybe your children think you should be, or your parents, you become lost because you're confused about who you are. So it says the minute you integrate all parts of yourself without feeling shameful, without feeling embarrassed, and you just say, this is me, this is who I am, then you're going to feel happier, you're going to feel whole. So he said, stop filtering your thoughts, stop filtering your actions, and go from seeking achievement to seeking meaning about who you are. So he says the journey of becoming who you truly are, not who you were told to be, is the most terrifying thing, but it's also the most liberating, because what he says is people are hiding from themselves. People are wearing a mask because they think that's going to they're going to be accepted. People are acting in a particular, you see it all the time when you see people putting on these fake accents because they think, oh, this will make me seem more intelligent, or this will make me seem more friendly. You know, they avoid their true selves. You know, you see it when you see people dressing in a way that isn't really authentically themselves, but they think, well, this is what you're supposed to wear, this is what you're supposed to do. Everyone to a certain degree is hiding parts of themselves, or is putting on like a bit of a show, and that's never going to disappear. But I think what you've got to try to do, I suppose, is to just show yourselves more, and not do it for society's sake, but for your own sake. So he talks about people who externalize everything are the most anxious because they have no control. So if your focus is always on external factors, you're always going to feel anxious, because you're always going to be thinking about, oh, well, that person might be thinking this about me, or I can't make this decision because I've read on the news that mortgage rates are going up, or whatever it is. If it's outside of you, you have no control over it anyway. So that's why like people have a lot of anxiety, because they're thinking about the future, but no one can predict the future. So even the things they're reading on the news or seeing on social media are not correct, because we're not in the future yet. But that anxious person has internalized it all to say, I can't do anything, I can't be anyone, like, compared to this person who's got all these things, this is where I should be. So that's what's making them anxious. It's not the actual situation. So it's saying what you really need to do is to have trust, faith, confidence and resilience in yourself, so that you can become mentally robust. Because if you have trust and faith and confidence in yourself, and you're a resilient person, then you don't have to worry about what's coming, because you already know where you are now, but you also know what will happen. If the worst happens, you've kind of mentally prepared yourself for it. So it's saying that just really you just have to think about, what have I got in here? So yeah, you have to, the more you move away from your authentic self, the more lost you become. So I've talked about that a little bit. So your real life begins when you stop pretending and you only do what is in alignment with your authentic self. So you give yourself a deeper sense of purpose. You give yourself, Carl Rogers this is, so he talks about, so Carl Rogers is a psychotherapist that created the, what's it called, person-centered counselling. So he says, his belief is that when people come to therapy, it's not the therapist who's the expert, it's the person who's the expert. And if they have the right conditions, they have someone who doesn't judge them, they have someone who is warm, kind, listens to them, active listening, and just reflects back what they say. That's what person-centered counselling is. They will come to their own conclusions about what they need. They will become more based on the fact that they're just being there and being heard and listened to and not judged. Not everyone believes that, and not everyone, that doesn't suit everyone. But what he's saying really is that you just have to get something to feel excited about. You have to just be enthusiastic. You have to just be your authentic self at all times, because if you do that, then you're not going to be this anxious person wondering like what everyone's thinking about you. You're not going to be wondering what the meaning of life is and why you're here, and you're not going to feel depressed because you're going to have things to feel excited about. You're going to have purpose and meaning. And you're not going to be pretending and doing things just because you think you should. You're going to do everything because it's in alignment with who you are. So Viktor Frankl, there's just a bit about him. He says we find meaning through our work, through love, and through suffering. So the first one, work, is not just meaning paid work, having a job where you have a salary. He says your work could be your calling. So your work could be that you're a parent, so you find meaning through that. Your calling could be that you become, I don't know, a priest or someone who works as a volunteer. Whatever it is, though, he said you have to have some type of work in life. That work, whether it's paid or whether that work is a different thing, I'd call it then, instead of work, because as you said, a parent doesn't get paid to be a parent. You have to have a cause, or you have to have a task, or you have to have something. So he says that if you don't have anything in life that is structured or is like work put in under that category, then you're not gonna have meaning through life, because there's nothing bigger than yourself. It's just you. If you just wake up every day and you don't have anything to attach anything to, he's saying you're not going to have meaning. The second category where you find meaning is through love. And he said it's not just through relationships. It's through love of your family. It's through love of it can be the work that you do. You can get love from that. Through love of just loving your fellow human beings. But he said, yeah, that's like where you get meaning, because it makes life rich. And the third one is suffering, because it says when pain enters your life, it can break you or you can learn from it. So if you go through life and it doesn't have to be something majorly something big that causes pain or suffering, but say if someone goes through most of their life and they're shielded from anything painful, and this does happen because maybe the parents protect their child from absolutely everything, which is not a bad thing either, because you're not going to purposely but say like something happens and the child maybe needs to know, so maybe there's been a bereavement in the family, or maybe something serious has happened. There's child appropriate ways to share things with children, but say if you as parents, you believe that your child should not hear any of this stuff, so they're not going to maybe experience any form of suffering or any problem or anything like that. When that child then has their first issue, and it might be something small or it might be something big, they can't handle that because it's kind of like they haven't been taught to, and they also see it as a major thing when maybe it isn't major. So that's what he's trying to say, is like it's the meaning that's attached to it. Everything that it's how you explain it, especially when it's children, but it's also what meaning you attach to it. So other things it just talks about is that there's only a few more things. Carl Rogers talks about being congruent as a person, so that your inside matches the outside. Stop censoring yourself. Stop feeling like you can't say this or you can't do this. He said, notice what excites you. Take a leap of faith. Believe that there's something better on the outside, the other side. And this comes up a lot, I suppose, for not just clients I work with, but just people in general. No one wants to take risks because they're worried about where it's going to lead. So they'd rather stay in a bad situation than it's like better the devil you know than take that risk and see what's out there. So he said that there's two types of fear. There is normal fear, which is danger, where something, if a fire's coming towards you, you're not going to stand there and think, oh, I wonder what this fire represents in my life. You're just going to get out of there. There's danger, in situations. So it's saying that is real fear. That is what fear is in that sense. But the second fear is when you stand on the edge of something new and you're afraid of the unknown. So this is the fear where it's not actually fear, because there's no danger attached to this. But he says the majority of people, they don't like change, and they're fearful of the unknown. So that's the reason they're not taking like lots of chances in life. And he said the dizziness of freedom is that terrifying moment when you realize that your life that fear is not the enemy, it's the threshold. So it goes on and it talks a lot about this thing of people are scared to take that chance. People are scared of like what it would be like to just be authentic. People are scared of the level of freedom so they need, and this is where it gets a bit like I don't know how much I believe this, but I think there is some element to it. What he says is people are scared to be themselves completely, and they're scared of the freedom that comes with being yourself. If you woke up and you said every decision you're going to make is you're going to take the consequences of that. So he says that's why people blame other things. So they say, I can't make this decision because of the government. I'm saying this myself. I can't make this decision because the government has put this in place. I can't do this because my partner won't let me. I can't do this because my boss is stopping me from doing it. I can't do this because the kids, I got to wait for. They put all these things in place, he says, but I believe as well, because it stops you from doing that stuff because really you're scared to do it. It's nothing to do with the government. It's nothing to do with your children. It's nothing to do with your partner. It's you. Because if you really, really wanted to make that change and that choice, nothing would stop you, because you would just say, I have to do this. This is so important, and you would find a way. So I suppose, there's loads there. I think I've covered everything that was in this is all from one video that I watched, but it is also linked with the work that I do, because some of these psychologists and psychotherapists, obviously that's the part of the work we do, especially the shadow work, as I've said, the parts work, because this idea that you can hide parts of yourself because you don't want anyone to see that side of you, but that you're also ashamed of parts of you as well, is massive, because it means you're walking around as an incomplete person. And maybe there's lots of people that feel ashamed to say what some of their thoughts are, or what they think, or what they feel, because they believe that people are going to judge them on that. But it's not about other people, it's about you. If you're walking around as an incomplete person, or you're walking around wearing a mask, you can't live an authentic life. You can't live a full life, because you are effectively you are putting on an act. You're putting on a mask. So I hope you found this video useful. This live stream, I'll continue to do live streams every Monday. And if there's a particular topic, I know that some people have reached out and given me specific topics, and I will cover those topics when on one Monday. I'll just find a time to do that. But if there's anything that you do want me to talk about, then feel free to leave me a comment, or to message me. So if you want to find out more about the work I do as a counsellor and a coach, you can also go to my Facebook page, Marianne Hanson Counselling Service. You'll find all of my details on there, and I'll also put them in the description as well. Thanks for joining me on the live stream, and anyone joining on the replay, feel free to leave your comments. Bye everyone.